Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to get an opportunity to talk to Franki Moscato today. You might recognize Franki's name from ABC's American Idol. She did win a golden ticket when she was 17 years old, which is incredible. You've been performing, I think, since you were 11 years old. So you've got quite an experience performing in front of people. And you're really passionate about fighting teen suicide. And so as part of our Mental Health Awareness Month campaign, we wanted to sit down and talk to you and get to know you a little bit better and learn more about your foundation and the work that you're doing in the community.
Oh, well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So let's start with that. Let's jump right in. You work very closely on fighting teen suicide, and I'm curious where that came from. What started that interest?
Yeah, I'm really I feel so blessed with all the gifts that God's given me, but I didn't realize that I'd grow up not being one of those kids that fit in. I was in the spotlight at a young age, and I think that kind of made everybody around me uncomfortable. And that was my friends and parents and teachers. Um, and so by 7 years old, I was singing and playing piano. And by 11, I started getting noticed by the media when I was invited to sing for the Green Bay Packers. And um, so in seventh grade, I was just too busy and too happy to um, care about those typical adolescent conversations about boyfriends and drugs and drinking, the things that everybody was talking about at the time. And so that's what made me weird and just a target to be picked on at school. And so that forced me to leave two of them because of this. And I soon transferred to an online school where I finished high school with high honors.
That's awesome. It's quite a lot of accomplishments, and through, I guess, an unfortunate situation for you. But I do love that you've kind of flipped that into a positive, and now you're using that, and you're using your voice, literally and figuratively, to raise awareness about adolescent suicide and to help kids. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's the dark places that I was in, it only made my passion go stronger. And now I travel and talk and play music at schools and youth support organizations to encourage kids like me to realize that our huge problems are only temporary and we're all different creatures of God and we're going to face difficult days and weeks, but I'm so firm that A, bullying is unacceptable, and B, suicide is unacceptable, and C, knowing that someone is being bullied and you're not doing anything about it to help that person, that's totally unacceptable.
Sure. You don't live in the state of Colorado. You actually live in Wisconsin. I don't know what the numbers specifically are where you live, but in Colorado, we have one of the highest teen suicide rates in the entire country. And so I know a lot of organizations are really starting to push this pediatric mental health crisis, and try and figure out how we can help, how we can reverse those statistics. In your experience, and I guess maybe some of your experiences, in your community where you live, like, what do you see as kind of the main reasons why kids might be taking their own lives?
Well, regardless of our age, the problem I think it can be described in one word. It's hopelessness. And when we believe Satan's lie that our problems will be solved when we kill ourselves, we're in the deepest state of hopelessness.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that's probably one of the key words I think anybody would use. And you even had mentioned, previously, just in our conversation here, that these problems are temporary, and I think that that's a huge thing that we need to make sure that we're relaying to these kids who do feel hopeless, that this is temporary. This you'll get past this. You have a community of support to help you get past this. But I do think hopelessness is a big reason. And for you personally, and I guess just as a society, what do you think is necessary to kind of start to fight back against the feeling of hopelessness for these kids and just the suicide statistics that we see?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We start with talking about it, and that's, like podcasts like yours, and hopefully conversations in our own circles. Just by talking openly about suicide and not hiding it, we create opportunities to save lives. Suicidality is an illness. It's like cancer and heart disease. Because we are creatures of emotion, we need to talk about it like it's the flu that we have. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking to hurt yourself? So um, we need to be empathetic and ask it directly, eliminate the stigma. And if you have the illness, tell people who you trust and who will help you get over that short hump.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. We've kind of seen that here just personally with, with coaches. We've got 1,500 coaches that we know are trusted resources for these kids. And we've really tried to empower them to talk about the subject with these kids where, nobody wants to talk about suicide. It's the stigma is still there. It's a bad word. It's, parents don't want to talk about it with their kids because they think that talking about it gives them the idea, which we know is not the case. So I'm curious, we've got some ideas, at least kind of in our own community down here. And I think it would probably apply across the country, but what do you think is the reason why we're seeing these higher numbers year to year?
Well, first, let me say that something that really bothers me is the time that it takes to compile suicide and suicide attempt statistics. When someone dies or is admitted into the hospital, all of the data is logged, like age, nationality, and gender. And so why does it take 3 years to report on suicidality numbers? I mean, like we report on COVID stats from this morning,
Right.
that just really frustrates me. But
Right.
yes, the numbers have doubled over the last 10 years.
Right. Right. Well, and I think that's you hit the nail on the head there, is that, we're looking, even as an organization like ours, who's trying to help fight the stigma behind mental health issues and trying to help with teen suicide. It's really tough when we're going back and we don't even have 2020 numbers to look at. So we really have no idea what the current numbers are and how bad the crisis really is. And I think that's a huge problem. I completely agree. I'm curious more about your foundation. We've talked about just kind of suicide in general. I'm curious about the work that you guys are doing through your foundation to help fight this problem.
Yeah, I was a spokesperson for three mental health organizations starting when I was 11. And when I returned from American Idol, I helped to raise $12,000 for one of them. But suicide it's broad and wide, and I want to focus my energy specifically on teenagers. So in late 2019, the Franki Moscato Foundation was approved as a 501c3 nonprofit entity.
That's awesome. What over the last couple of years, I know obviously you probably haven't been able to do maybe as much in the community as you would have hoped over the last couple of years with everything going on. But what are some of the things that your foundation either is working on or hopes to work on? Any plans that you guys have coming up, or anything that you have that you want to share that you think is really exciting that the foundation is going to be working on?
Oh yeah, big stuff. We really get work. We get stuff done, and so I not only do I travel around to schools all around my state of Wisconsin and even outside of the state. But when I'm there, I'm kind of looking and trying to learn the culture of the school, and I learn a lot. And sometimes I can see that they're not very aware of this growing epidemic of teen suicide. So that's when I will bring in my foundation, and I will bring in my team of 30 adult volunteers, and we'll get connected with the school. And my foundation grants money to impoverished schools and youth support organizations to be able to bring in real professionals to put into place sustainable awareness programs. So we do that, but also we just moved into a commercial building right in Wisconsin, right on the main street of Oshkosh, and we provide free resources to families that are feeling hopeless, or they have these questions that they can't answer. And so we're bringing in real Christian psychologists to be able to talk to these kids and families. And so we are giving money to schools, but we're also spreading the awareness.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that that work will continue as we know this unfortunately, I don't think this epidemic is going to go anywhere anytime soon, or at least, the hope is that we can start to fight back against it. But we do know that this is an issue all throughout the country and society. So I think that's great. I think talking to schools, I think talking to kids, I think having somebody your age who's maybe can connect with those kids more, I think is so important. I think it's great. And I think it's similar to some of the stuff that we see down here in Colorado too, which is great to see that we have organizations that are working to fight against this. I know you've got a busy calendar. I would love to talk about some of the stuff you have coming up. I know you're actually going to come out and visit us here in September for our Healthy Kids Expo. We're super excited about. But I did really quick want to talk to you. Like I said, we have coaches, we have parents, we reach about 15,000 kids every year. Most of it is through our sports programs, with our enrichment programs. But I think pressure too is something that we see a lot with these kids with, making a basket or making the serve over the net in volleyball, or hitting the tee shot off the tee and, not, having it go far right, far left. Like, I'm curious, your experience actually with singing, and like being on a show like an American Idol, mental preparation, or like what tips would you have for young kids if they are up against any sort of pressure, or if they're feeling pressure, even I guess in their normal lives where that hopelessness may come from, like you touched on. I'm kind of curious if you have any sort of mental preparation tips, or just things that you've done when you've been warming up for an important performance. I mean, you've sang the national anthem how many times now at massive events. So there's got to be a little bit of nerves, I would think, that kind of go with that. So just curious if you have anything that like you would say for a younger kid, a middle school, high school kid, when it comes to facing pressure and not letting the weight of that pressure get to them.
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, I used to be so filled with anxiety as a young kid, singing national anthem for thousands and thousands of people. And so I think that I talk about a lot is it is so hard to be a kid nowadays. It's so hard to be a teenager, and especially with social media. I could just go on and on about all the little things that I do. I mean, even if we're just thinking super simple, one thing that really helps if you're filled with anxiety, you think about the sounds that are around you and really focus on that clock that's in the corner of the room, and put ice cubes in your hands. And another thing is praying. I pray before every single performance. I mean, right before I go on, my dad will say, "Did you pray?" And then I got to do that. And so that's really important to me. And but another big thing is you really want to unplug from your phone and from social media, because in my opinion, the rising of suicide rates, it has to do with our society becoming so much more secular. I have compiled charts that show how recent families are leaving religion. And so when times get tough, everyone in that family unit, they reach out to things that are fleeting, that are without hope. And instead of God, they turn to how many likes their last Facebook post received, or how much money they made in the stock market, or how famous they are in their circle of friends or in the media. And we all encounter times of trial and tribulation and pressure. But how do Instagram likes fight against hopelessness? So it's really important to just unplug from social media.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think taking time away from any sort of technology, like you said, I think it just kind of centers you. And then you stop focusing on how many people did or did not like something that you posted, which I think is a huge issue we have, especially with our younger generation right now. But like I mentioned, I do want to get into some of the stuff that you have coming up. It sounds like you've got a pretty packed schedule, in addition to, again, coming out here, which we're really excited about. But what's some of the fun stuff you have coming up?
Oh yes, I was cast in a Christian thriller movie. It's called Through Eyes of Grace, and I'll be playing the role of Grace, the pastor's daughter. But I was also invited to sing our national anthem for NASCAR on July 7th in Iola, Wisconsin.
Awesome.
And then I have I'll be opening up the grand festival food stage at Life Fest in the summer in July. It's this beautiful Christian music venue. It's amazing. And then I'm opening up for my biggest music mentor, Danny Goki. I'm just so stoked for that. He's this crazy talented Christian singer. He was on American Idol. I think he was the top 3 many years ago.
Okay.
But then I'm visiting Mr. Bill Hanslick's team and his flock in September, and I have a similar visit to some Christian schools in Ohio that are coming up. And but everything in between is bookings to do corporate events and private celebrations. So it's going to be a busy year until the end. But my foundation to fight teen suicide, it keeps me focused on why I get up in the morning.
Totally. And then for anybody that's interested in learning more about your foundation, do you want to just give the website or any way that they can reach you, contact you? If they're interested in learning more about your work, or even just kind of learning more about your background. I know you've got a lot of information on your website when we've gone through it, really impressive stuff. But for anybody that's interested in learning more about your foundation, do you have a website that they can go to?
Oh, absolutely. You can find everything on franki.me. It's franki.me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. Love the work you're doing up there. Can't wait to see you when you come down here. And I'm sure we'll touch base before September, but if not, good luck with everything over the summer, and keep doing the work that you're doing, because it's really important in the community. And I think you're helping to change young people's lives, which is incredible.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Great. Thanks so much.